Okay, we are live. Welcome, everyone, to the first episode of Medieval Storytime with the Contessa. Today, we shall be starting off what I hope will become a weekly series. Many of you have requested this. We will be reading different passages, stories, strictures, and chronicles from exciting medieval sources. So we will be hearing the voices of people as were hundreds of years ago. So today I have three selections for us. I have one from Il Decamerone, the Decameron, and this is my beautiful early 17th century edition. Well, it's a reprint of the 17th century edition, a translation by John Florio, who was a native Italian English speaker. His one parent was Italian, one parent was English. So he was natively bilingual, and he actually created a dictionary, an English-Italian dictionary, the first ever, I think, Italian-English dictionary in the English language. And he translated the Decameron into English in 1620. And so the English is in Shakespearean style. So it is very fun English. This is my favorite translation. It's not the most accurate translation, but it is the most fun. So I have a fun selection from here. Good morning, Takeda. Good morning, Glory. Hello, Condottiero. So we'll be reading a tale from the Decameron. Then I have my facsimile of the Book of Nurture. This is a compilation of books of etiquette from the 15th and 16th century, composed in English. And there's a series of strictures about the do's and don'ts of dining at the table that will probably, hopefully anyway, horrify some of you. Some pretty amazing things here that they have to tell people not to do. And as we all know, you only have to tell people not to do something if they're doing it. And then to cap us off, I have a selection from Thomas Malory, Sir Thomas Malory, a robber baron extraordinaire, who composed, of course, Mort d'Arthur is his most famous work, but he composed many other he wrote versions of many other Arthurian legends. And of course, his are more like Clive Cussler novels. They're kind of action adventure-y. And today I've picked a short excerpt of The Tale of the Poisoned Apple. And it will be read in I think this is a 16th century print of his work. So the language is a little interesting also. So it's not quite his original 15th century English, which can be impenetrable, but it is an older style of English. So that's what we have today. So are there any questions before we get started, everyone? This will be a weekly thing. It'll probably not be at this time slot. Normally, I don't know what I was thinking when I chose this time slot. I should have chosen a later time slot, especially for story time, because I expect some of you will probably be using this to possibly go to sleep. That is the hope anyway. If you are watching from Facebook or from Twitch, unfortunately, I have no oversight into those comments. And of course, once I get reading, I will probably not be keeping an eye on the comments, really. I'm going to get into the reading. So, Il Decamerone. Let me present to you the frame of this story. Il Decamerone is a compilation by Giovanni Boccaccio, who is a 15th century Italian writer. He's writing in the Tuscan dialect. So he's a contemporary of Dante and Petrarca and authors of those ilk. And of course, he's writing in the vulgar tongue. He's not writing in Latin. And he basically takes it upon himself to compile 100 folk tales from his region. And many of these folktales make appearances in other parts of Europe as well at the same time. So clearly, Il Decamerone is not just a compilation of Italian folktales, but of folktales of a wider breadth and appeal that kind of show just how interconnected Europe was on even the folk level, the sort of everyday common person level. And the frame of this is basically, this takes place during the Black Death. And a group of Florentine aristocrats or patricians basically flee the city. They flee the walls of Florence, and they go to Fiesole, and they retreat to one of their country villas there. They all have country villas, and they go to they've 10 of them. It's 10 companions, 7 women and 3 men. And they retreat to the countryside to one of their country villas to spend 10 days disporting in all the gentle pleasures. And that's the frame of the story. And every day they have a monarch. They name a monarch for the day. And the monarch for the day basically controls what it is they do. He or she decides what kinds of stories they're going to hear. He or she decides what kind of activities, whether it be dancing or feasting or picnicking or games. And every day kind of has a focus. So each of the 10 days, Il Decamerone, that's Il Deca 10, right? That's what it's focused on, is this idea of 10 by 10 by 10. And every day there's a kind of focus, a theme, even though it's not necessarily announced per se. But if you start paying attention to the stories, you'll realize there's one day is devoted to action adventure, another day is devoted to naughty religious members of the religious community. So we're going to actually start with a tale that should hopefully offend no modern sensibilities. I will tell you, remember, historical tales, by which I mean tales from past times, do not meet the mores of the modern world, and many of them may seem cringeworthy. The one I picked today, hopefully have minimum cringe, but you really can't read historical literature unless you just accept that there are going to be things that are not acceptable by today's standards. And Il Decamerone, there's a lot of that. But I'm going to try to avoid those stories when we read something from the Decameron. It's not period, but there's an Oscar Wilde story of a statue encrusted with gold and jewels who helps people by dejeweling himself. Oh, yeah, that is a very nice tale. Oscar Wilde was a very interesting creature. Okay, so Il Decamerone. The First Day, the sixth novel. Oh, my cats. Oh no, my cats. Did my cats move? No, here it is. Sorry. The First Day, the fifth novel. I came out this morning and found one of my bookmarks way down the hall, so I had to refine my position in Thomas Mallory's book. But yeah. The First Day, the fifth novel. The Marquesa of Montferrat was a worthy and valiant knight. Excuse me. The Marquess of Montferrat was a worthy and a valiant knight, who, being Captain General for the church, the necessary service required his company on the seas, in a goodly army of the Christians against the Turks. Upon a day, in the court of King Philip, surnamed the One-Eyed King, who likewise made preparation in France for a royal assistance to that expedition, as many speeches were delivered concerning the valor and manhood of the Marquess, it fortuned that a knight was then present who knew him very familiarly. He gave an addition to the former commendation that the whole world contained not a more equal couple in marriage than the Marquess and his lady. For, as among all knights, the Marquess could hardly be paralleled for armis and honor. Even so, his wife, in comparison of all other ladies, was scarcely matchable for beauty and virtue. Which words were so weighty in the apprehension of King Philip, that suddenly, having as yet never seen her, he began to affect her very earnestly, concluding to embark himself at Gens or Genoa, there to set forward on the intended voyage, and, journeying thither by land, he would shap some honest excuse to see the lady Marquess, whose lord, being then from home, opinion persuaded him over fondly that he should easily obtain the issue of his amorous desire. When he was come within a day's journey, where the lady Marquess then lay, he sent her word that she should expect his company on the morrow at dinner. The lady, being singularly wise and judicious, answered the messenger that she reputed the king's coming to her as an extraordinary grace and favor, and that he should be most heartily welcome. Afterward, entering into further consideration with herself what the king might mean by his private visitation, knowing her husband to be from home, and it to be no mean bar to his apter entertainment, at last she discreetly conceited, and therein was not deceived, that, babbling a report of her beauty and perfections, might thus occasion the king's coming thither, his journey lying elsewhere, quite the contrary way. Notwithstanding, being a princely lady, and so loyal a wife as to ever lived, she intended to give him her best entertainment. summoning the chiefest gentlemen in the country together to take due order, by their advice, for giving the king a gracious welcome. But concerning the dinner and diet for service to his table, that remained only at her own disposing. Sending presently abroad, and buying all the hennis that the country afforded, she commanded her cooks that only of them, without other provision beside, they should prepare all the services that they could devise. On the morrow, the king came according to his promise, and was most honorably welcomed by the lady, who seemed in his eye, far beyond the knight's speeches of her, the fairest creature that ever he had seen before. Whereat he merveiled not a little, extolling her perfections to be peerless, which much the more inflamed his affections, and almost made his desires impatient. The king, being withdrawn into such chambers as orderly were prepared for him, and as beseemed so great a prince, the hour of dinner drawing on, the king and the lady Marquess were seated at one table, and his attendants placed at other tables, answerable to their degrees of honor. Plenty of dishes being served in, and the rarest wines that the country yielded, the king had more mind to the fair lady Marquess than any meat that stood on table. Nevertheless, observing each service after the other, and that all the viands, though variously cooked and in diverse kinds, were nothing else but hens only, he began to wonder, and so much the rather because he knew the country to be of such quality that it afforded all plenty both of fowls and venison. Beside, after the time of his coming was heard, they had respite enough both for hawking and hunting, and therefore it increased his marvel the more that nothing was provided for him, but hens only. Wherein, to be better resolved, turning a merry countenance to the lady, thus he spake: Madam, are hens only bred in this country and no cocks? The lady Marquess, very well understanding his demand, which fitted her with an apt opportunity to thwart his idle hope and defend her own honor, boldly returned the king this answer: Not so, my lord, but women and wives, howsoever they differ in garments and graces one from another, yet, notwithstanding, they are all here as they be in other places. When the king heard this reply, he knew well enough the occasion of his hen dinner, and also where virtue lay couched, and also what virtue lay couched under her answer. Perceiving apparently that wanton words would prove but in vain, and such a woman was not easily to be seduced. Wherefore, as he grew enamored on her inconsiderately, so he found it best fitting for his honor to quench this heat with wisdom discreetly. And so, without any more words or further hope of speaking in so unkingly a purpose, dinner being ended by a sudden departing, he smoothly shadowed the cause of his coming, and, thanking her for the honor she had done him, commended her to her chaste disposition, and posted away with speeda to Genus. Thus to all kings who would crave what they should not. The end. So, short little story from the Decameron to kick us off. That is probably one of the shortest tales there is. Most of them take at least a good 20 minutes to read. What did we all think of that? Of the Lady Marquess and her hennis? It's interesting that neither the Marquess nor the Marquise are ever actually named. The king is, but otherwise the rest are the remaining characters are only referred to by their titles and their honorifics, which I find very interesting. King Philip, surnamed the One-Eyed King. It's a very interesting detail, I find, because the one-eyed never plays into it again. Right, so first today, fifth novel, Boccaccio, Il Decamerone. This, by the way, is an edition by an Eastman edition, I think it is, which is a company that does really lovely reprints, and it's leather bound, very, very nice indeed. And it is actually a proper reprint. It includes the original plates from the 17th century version, although the writing is not the original 17th century. The print is not, but the plates are. So that's fun. Game over for the poor king. Yeah, exactly. Thus over to kings who would crave that which they should not have. The hen dinner for the win. Right. Okay. Any questions about the first day, the fifth novel? And yes, that is how all of the novels are referred to, is by the day and the number of the order of that day. So as I said, every day has 10 novels, and there are 10 days total. So yeah, they're all different, but some of them are quite fantastical and very adventuresome indeed, and show just how imaginative medieval people were, in fact. Right. Okay. So moving on to a different sort of literature, the Book of Caring, or Caring, or the Book of Nurture, or the Baby's Book. These are all different etiquette manuals from the 15th and 16th century. And so back in the 19th century, what are you doing? Condottiero, your cat is up in the stadium again, in the Colosseum. Right. So back in the 19th century, many antiquarians transcribed and translated and or just reprinted wholesale books from the Middle Ages and made them available to, therefore, to a wider audience. And this is actually a Kessinger Legacy reprint, very affordable, very not expensive at all. I think I got this on Abe Books. And this is a collection of etiquette manuals from England from the 15th and the 16th century. And what's fun about these etiquette manuals is that they are in verse, not in prose. And so I'm going to elucidate you, my fellow my fellow travelers, on this exploration of medieval material culture in proper medieval table etiquette, also known as how not to behave when at table with the Lord. Yes. Right. Okay. So I'm not going to start at the very beginning because it's very long and there's all sorts of repetition for the sake of memorization. So we're going to start sort of in the middle of the various rules. But let me just summarize some of the rules for you that you should not do. Please don't trim your nails at the table. um, please chew with your mouth closed. If you're speaking, please do so in a normal voice and do not shout. When you speak to the Lord, if you are invited to speak to him, you should stand up tall and proud and not slouch and mumble, which I thought was an interesting note, because of course, in other parts of the world, you're expected to crouch, especially in Asia, actually, in this era. You're expected to sort of crouch in front of the king. You are not supposed to stand up tall, actually. Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of things like fill not thy spoon too full, lest thou lose somewhat by the way. So there's all kinds of interesting things. So let's go ahead and get started here. Right here in the middle. Before thou do sit, see that your knives be made bright, your hands clean, your nails parda. It is a goodly sight. When thou shalt speak to any man, roll not too fast thine eye. Gaze thou not to and fro, as that is void of courtesy. For a man's countenance oft times discloseth still his thought. His lookes and his speeche, trust thou me, will judge him good or not. Look that your knife be sharp and keen to cut your meat withal. So the more cleanlier be sure to cut your meat you shall. Or thou put much bread in thy porridge, look thou do it assay. Fill not thy spoon too full, lest thou lose somewhat by the way. If any man eat of your dish, crumb you therein no bread, lest that your hands be found sweaty, thereof take you good heady. They may be corrupt that causeth it, for it is no fair usage. Of bread, slice out fair morsels to put in your pottage. Fill it not too full of bread, for it may be reprovable. Least thou leave parta, for then to measure thou art variable. And sup not loud of thy pottage, no time in all thy life. Dip not thy meat in the salt cellar, but take it with thy knife. When thou hast eaten thy pottage, do as I shall thee wish. Wipe clean thy spoon, I do thee rede. Leave it not in the dish. Lay it down before thy trencher, thereof be not afraid, and take heed who taketh it up, for fear it be conveyed. If you've ever been to a feast and had the servers take away your dishes and wash them for you, my spoon has often vanished and I've often had to go and find it, whether it was intentionally conveyed or not. Cut not the best piece for thyself, leave thou some part behind. Be not greedy of meat and drink, be liberal and kind. Burnish no bonus with thy teeth, for that is unseemly. Rend not thy meat sonder, for that swerves from courtesy. And if a stranger sit near thee, ever among now and then, reward thy him with some dainties, show thyself a gentleman. If your fellow sit from his meeta, and cannot come thereto, then cut for him such as thou hast, he may like for thee do. Belch thou nearer to no man's face, with a corrupt formosity. Formosity is my new word of the day. But turn from such occasion, friend, hate such ventosity. Eat you small morsels of meata, not too great in quantity. And if thee like such meat is, yet follow not ever your own fantasia. Defile not thy lips with eating much, as a pig eating draffa. Eat softly and drink mannerly. Take heed you do not quaffa. Scratch not thy head with thy fingers when thou art at thy meata. Nor spite to you over, nor spit to you over the table borda. See thou doest not this forget. Pick not thy teeth with thy knife, nor with thy fingers' end, but take a stick or some clean thing. Then do you not offend. If that your teeth be putrefied, methinka it is no right. To touch the meat others should eat, it is no cleanly sight. Pick not thy handes, I thee require, nor play not with thy knife. Keep still thy hands and feet also. At meat time, use no strife. Wipe thy mouth when thou shalt drink, ale, beer, or any wine. On thy napkin thou must wipe still, and see all things be clean. Blow not your nose with on the napkin, where you should wipe your hand, but cleanse it in your handkercher, then pass you not your band. With your napkin you may often wipe, and make your mouth full cleaner. Something that thou canst not espy, of others may be seen. Fill not thy trencher, I thee rid, with morsels great and large. Cram not thy mouth too full, no yet thy stomach overcharge. But temper thou thyself with drinka, so keep thee from blame. Drunkenness hurteth thy honesty, and hindereth thy good name. Keep thou thyself from all excess, both in meata and in drinka. And ever use thou temperance, whether you wake or winka. Fill not thy mouth too full, lest thou of force must speak. Nor blow not out thy crumbs when thou dost eat. Foul not the place with spitting, whereas thou dost sit. Lest it abhorra some that sit by. Let reason rule thy wit. If thou must spit or blow thy nose, keep thou it out of sight, lest it not lie upon the ground, but tread thou it outright. With bonus and void morsels, fill not thy trencher, my friend, full. Avoid them into avoider, no man will it annul. Roll not thy meat within thy mouth, that every man may it see, but eat thy meat somewhat close, for it is honesty. If that thy sovereign proffer thee to drink once, twice, or thrice, take it gently at his hand. In court it is the guise. When thou hast drunka, straight set it down, and take it his servant. Let not thy master set it down, then is it well, I warrant. Blow not thy pottage, nor drinka, for it is not commendable. For if thou be not whole of thy body, thy breath is corruptible. Cast not thy bones under the table, nor none see thou do knack. Stretch thee not at the table, nor lean forth thy back. Afore thy meat, not afterward, with knife scorch not the border. Such toys are not commendable. Trust thou me at a warder. Lean not upon the board, when then thou master is thereat. For then with all your elders, thinka you be with him, lack mate. Be not ashamed to eat the meat which is set before thee, mannerly, for to take it, friend, agreeth with courtesy. Cast not thine eyes to new yet fro, as thou wert full of toys. Use not much wagging with thy head, it scarce becometh boys. Blow not thy nose, nor look thereon, to most men it is loath. Be not louder where you be, nor at the table where you sit. Some men will deem thee drunken mad, or else to lack thy wit. When meat is taken quite away, and voiders in presence, put your trencher in the same, and all your residence. Take you with your napkin and knife the crumbs that are afore thee. In the voider your napkin leave, for it is courtesy. Be gentle alway and glad to please, be it night or day. With tongue nor hand nor rigor use, let reason rule alway. When that the meat is taken up, and the tablecloth made clean, then give good ear to hear some grace to wash yourself demeanor. And while that grace is saying, friend, look that ye make no noise, and thank ye God for your good fare, him as your sovereign praise. When thee begin from border to rise, say to your fellows all, much good it do thee, gently. Then they courteous will thee all call. Then go you to your sovereign, give him obeisance duly. Then done, withdraw yourself aside, at no time prove unruly. If these see men in council set, praise do not come too near. They will say that you are untaught, if you to them give ear. Whisper not thou with thy fellows oft, give thou no evil language. Men are suspicious found, and will think it no good usage. Laugh not too much at the table, nor sit at it no game. Void slanderous and bawdy tales. Use them not for shame. So don't read any Decameron tales at table, apparently. Or thou be old, beware I rid, lest thou do get a fall. If thee be honest in your youth, in age you may be liberal. Yeah, and it does not end there. Oh, I guess it does. The next chapter is for the waiting servant. So rules for how to wait upon your lord. Of course, this always seems to be aimed at men. All of these rules, these books of etiquette, they are all aimed at men. And they all refer to lord, and they all refer to knave, and but presumably the same rules would at a minimum apply to women. That being said, perhaps they didn't need to tell ladies not to blow their nose on the table, and if you blow it on the floor, to rub it out with your foot. I don't know how much of that you all picked up on, but there were some pretty horrifying things that they had to contend with, apparently. If one of my favorite one are all the comments about having rotten teeth, and the smell coming forth foul. Now, so this is actually a book that was published. I think this set of etiquette, it's a retouch of the earlier books, the 15th century books. It's a later 16th century one, and I chose this one because the 15th century English might actually be too impenetrable for most of you. But if you would all like, next time I will read from the 15th century English. Now that we've heard the 16th century English. But something I think I noticed is that in the 15th century rules, I don't remember quite so many passages about putrid teeth and putrid breath. And that is well likely because by the end of the 16th century, sugar has invaded England and teeth are rotting at a prodigious rate there. And they're using sugar. Sugar is apparently one of the pastes that they're using. They make a preparation involving honey and or sugar by the end of the 16th century to clean their teeth. And of course, now you have all these pure sugar dainties that are being served at feasts, and the wealthy are doing everything they can to acquire sugar-based goods. And so you can actually see a difference in the skulls from the 16th century versus skulls from the 15th, 14th, 13th century. Earlier skulls have all their teeth, and generally most of their teeth anyway, and enamel in good condition. By the end of the 16th century, teeth are rotting, gone, enamel completely degraded, teeth worn down. So I think it's not a coincidence that in my recollection, comparing the 15th century and 16th century rules of etiquette, the 16th century has to make many more proscriptions against doing things that involve exposing your foul breath and your foul teeth. Yeah. It's to cool it if you are sick. That seems like a post-COVID birth. Yeah. Elena says, it surprised me to hear, don't blow your soup to cool it if you are sick. That seems like a post-COVID birthday party protocol, blowing candles with a hand fan, right? Yeah. And it's probably, it is. So they didn't necessarily understand microbes, but they understood the concept of miasma. And they did understand that somehow the moisture, the breath, something coming out of your body would make other people sick, right? This is what I mean by when people say medieval people were ignorant. They were not. They just didn't yet have the tools to identify microbes. You need a microscope to be able to do that, right? To actually see them and identify them. And then basically that's when microscopy microscopy came into play, then we were able to finally see what the miasma really was. But they understood something about the mechanism, not the specific details. Yeah, there's a lot of things. Anyone else have a favorite role or something that was particularly surprising here? It's very interesting the details you can get from this also, not just manners, but the way a table should be set. The idea of a voider, and that's the way a lot of people have actually become accidentally authentic at medieval feasts, reenactment feasts or living history feasts or LARP feasts, whatever. Many people just automatically have learned that you want to bring a dish for the scraps that either you didn't like or you can't finish, or bones and whatnot, right? And that is called a voider. And that was just automatically part of the table setting. But many people that I know do that don't do it because they know medieval people did it. They do it because it's practical. And so there are so many ways where we in living history and reenactment communities can achieve, we have achieved what I call accidental authenticity, that we then find later on, maybe in some source like this, documentation for a practice we've been doing for a long time out of a sense of pragmatism, which just again goes to show you just how pragmatic medieval people were, not this benighted, ignorant dark age that the the snobby Italians of the Renaissance and then later on, later peoples wanted us to believe. Let's see, other rules I particularly enjoy, or something very interesting detail about keeping your knife bright and shiny. See that your knives be made bright before you come to table. And so this reminds us that medieval steel is not stainless. But it also tells us that it was unacceptable to have rusty, dirty, unseemly blades at a table, right? These are the kind of details that were very important. Clearly, table manners, table etiquette was very, very crucial to the functioning of society. And England isn't the only region in medieval Europe that has books of etiquette and books of rules. Italy, there's a set from Italy from the 13th century I recently stumbled across. I have to go and chase that down a little bit more. I found a reference to it. I thought it was also interesting. Burnish no bones with thy teeth, or that is unseemly. So the idea there is, that you're taking the bones, you're chewing the bones and trying to get the marrow out of it, right? Like I don't know how many of you have grandparents or great grandparents who used to suck the marrow out of the chicken bones. Yeah, I could imagine that being very unseemly in sound and sight for anyone in any era. The idea of not belching in someone's face. I mean, but my two favorite words from this whole thing have to be fermosity and ventosity, right? Fermosity is like this kind of fume coming out of your out of your mouth, and then ventosity is windiness, right? Is this that your body is filled with gas? Ventosity, flatulence, ventosity. I'm going to start. I think these words deserve a comeback, right? I believe that the words fermosity and ventosity deserve to be reintroduced to modern parlance and modern usage. Let's make it happen. bring bring 15th century English words back. Right. Anyone else have any? I'm surprised that there was nothing about urination or blood. Yeah, so pepperminty, that is an interesting point, right? But what that tells us is that clearly it was not an issue one way or the other. Either people peeing in the corner of a hall was done and acceptable, or it wasn't done at all. No one would do that, right? So they don't have to mention it. Those are the two options I see from the lack of mention there. Now, mind you, this is a second half of the 16th century source, so your mileage will vary depending on where you are. And blood, I guess, hopefully they didn't expect people to bleed at the table. I think that shows us that maybe we're in a more civilized time than people would like to believe. It might be instructive to do a vlog on table eating. I've actually thought about doing a reenactment of exactly this with the condottiere. We've talked about that, of him literally violating every rule as I read through it. That was our plan. And it tells us that it was bring your own knife. Yeah, right. Exactly, Elena. Yep. And your own spoon. Remember, they talk about having your spoon not be conveyed, right? Here it is. When thou hast eaten thy pottage, do as I shall thee wish. Wipe clean thy spoona, I do thee rede. Leave it not in the dish. Lay it down before thy trencher, thereof be not afraid. And take heed who takes it up, for fear it be conveyed. Right. So that again, so exactly the knife and spoon, that shows you the knife and spoon are things you bring to the table, not provided by the host, at least in a general way. Now, obviously, there could well have been banquets and feasts, and maybe of a certain level, if you are a guest, maybe you're not like a guest of honor. Perhaps the king is not expected to bring his own knife and spoon. I don't know. But at least at the level of sort of gentry that this would have been aimed at, you are expected to bring your own knife and spoon. I'm a bone chewer. Nice. Yep, my grandmother, Takeda, I thought so. Ossobuco is the best. Marrow is amazing. Oh, I know. Oh no, I love ossobuco. But the good thing about ossobuco is that you don't have to suck the marrow out of the bone, right? Because it's a cross section, so you can just use a spoon to remove the marrow. Oh no, I don't really care for chicken marrow. It doesn't taste very good to me. Lamb marrow, I guess probably ruminant marrow. I can eat that all day. Yeah, fermosity, fumosity, not fermosity, fumosity, Elena, fumosity, Fumosye in the charming 16th century orthography. Yeah, not fermosity, fumosity. We need to bring it back in exactly that form, I feel like. Do not stabbeth thy dining partners with thy knife or skewer. Right? Did they keep them clean to avoid rusting? That would affect the taste and longevity. Yeah, absolutely. I 100%. Keeping your knife clean is absolutely a practical aspect, because if you do not keep in mind, for those of you who have only ever used stainless steel, which is it stain resistant, it stains less. It's not rust free. But mild steel, you have to take very good care of. You have to clean it almost as soon as you're done using it and oil it. And occasionally maybe even temper it. That is how you maintain the longevity, and because otherwise it will rust, and it will rust away, right? It will deteriorate over time. So cleanliness is not just a question of cleanliness for cleanliness' sake. This is something I often have to say to my three sons. We don't keep things clean just because we're snobby housekeepers. We keep it clean for practical reasons. And in the case of mild steel implements from the medieval period, a stricture like, see that your knives be made bright is very practical for yourself. But it also shows that, the point is you're coming to a table with other people and you want your knives to be clean and well cared for, probably also because it shows that you are a person of standing, you are a respectful of an individual, you're honorable. Remember, in most past mindsets and across many places throughout the world historically, Korea included, your exterior is a reflection of the morality of your interior. So if you are clean and kempt and in good order, if you your clothes look good, if everything is, it might not, doesn't have to be fancy, but it has to be neat and trimmed and in good state of repair, right? That's a reflection of your inner morality. So probably I suspect that this stricture that your knives be made bright is part of that maintaining the exterior to indicate to people that you are a person of interior honor. Right? That's a very medieval, and across Europe, the same idea absolutely crops up in pretty much every place where I've read texts that give that kind of insight to medieval European culture. Iron oxide and black rust, iron oxide, red rust, and black rust are also more friendly environments to biological pathogens. Oh, Takeda, that is an interesting idea. I didn't realize that. So, of course, obviously, medieval people wouldn't necessarily have understood the pathogen part, but medieval people absolutely understood correlation 100%. And so I could absolutely see people noticing maybe that there is an increased incidence of ague, of ailment amongst people who didn't take good care of their metal tableware. Let's see. Yeah, chicken marrow isn't tasty. Oh, wait, I mean, did they keep the? Oh, yeah. Okay. Last question. Yep. Yeah, and exactly. And Elena, we still see that. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, we still see that process to this day in the morality of your exterior appearance. Yeah, ventosity, the windiness, and the fumosity, the foul smell coming out of your mouth with a corrupt fumosity. Just the image is horrifying. Yeah, if your teeth be putrefied, methink it is no right to touch meat others should eat. It is no cleanly sight. Which also remember that in general, place settings were shared in the medieval period and clearly into the 16th century. You would have a trencher and you would share that trencher with other people, and of course there was obviously food was served family style, but they're not just talking about don't take the meat from the serving plate. They mean don't take the meat from the trencher that you share with someone, meaning maybe you should get your own trencher if your teeth are that foul. Let's see. What about pewter knives and spoons and newfangled forks? I don't, pewter knives, Takeda, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think pewter knives can be a thing. Pewter isn't strong enough for a knife. It's going to be iron or steel, right? Spoons can be pewter, no problem. Your trencher can be pewter, no problem. But I would think pewter is definitely not sturdy enough for a knife. I don't think it can keep an edge either, really. But Takeda, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not a metalsmith or a metallurgist. Takeda also says, and consider the verdigris for Latinware and silver oxides found in silverware. Yeah, absolutely. So Latin, for those who don't know, is an alloy of various combinations, but it involves copper for certain. It's different from pewter, and it's labeled separately in the inventories and expense accounts from the era. Right. So there's a lot of Latinware and there's a lot of gilt Latinware. So you might have a Latin spoon that is silver gilt or even gold gilt. Yeah, and I hadn't thought about the verdigris. Yeah, verdigris is toxic, guys. If you have copperwares and there's verdigris on it, the green, the patina, right? That charming patina that we all love on copper roofs and the Statue of Liberty, right? It's toxic. Don't eat it. scrub it clean. I don't know, Takeda maybe has some suggestions on, oh my goodness, the construction outside is getting loud. If you all can hear the construction noise, let me know and I'll close the window. I'm just enjoying having a little breeze. Monsoon season, so it's a little humid today, but it's fine. I can also do without the breeze if the construction noise is too loud. Yeah. Takeda, do you have suggestions for properly cleaning verdigris from your wares? Yeah, and yeah, silver oxides involving antimony and arsenic. Oh, yeah, not good, guys. So yeah, please clean your various wares in the appropriate manner if there's any kinds of oxide on them, because none of those oxides are healthy or good for consumption. For certain not. I like the politeness of serving your dinner partner first. Yeah, and that's so it's interesting. The politeness of serving your dinner partner. It doesn't really mention anything about rank, but the idea of, you serve first, you let your someone else, you offer them to eat first, and that's actually that's a practice in my own family to this day. I have real issues being the first person to take food from a serving dish. Like, I feel, no, you go first. I will literally starve to death if you don't take food first. Let's see. Pewter might be on the handles of knives, but not for the blades. It is very weak when thin. Yeah, that's what I thought myself, Takeda. Do not lick the Statue of Liberty. Yeah, for those of you crazy tourists out there, don't lick the Statue of Liberty. That's a bad plan. Oh, Katie, thank you for joining us today. I love your videos. They're so interesting and informative. Oh my God, Facebook came through. A live chat comment from Facebook came through. Oh my God, it finally worked. Katie, thank you for joining us from Facebook. That's fantastic. Yummy verdigris. Can't hear construction. Great. Okay, fantastic. Then I'll leave the window open. Yeah, the idea, and also what to do with your napkin, right? First off, napkins were used. So even though if you look at pictures of people dining, medieval representations of feasts and of diners, you almost never actually see napkins, right? You just don't see them. But this is evidence of how art is not a complete picture of the reality, because here in these instructions, we have multiple mentions of napkins as clearly being a separate thing from the tablecloth, because you're supposed to put it in the voider when you're done, right? And so there's also instructions about when you finished eating, what do you do with all of these things, right? So the idea is probably don't toss the napkin on the floor, don't leave it on the bench, don't just toss it randomly on the table, put it in the voider so that it's easy. It makes it easier for the servants to clean up afterwards. I'll try Twitch. Oh, thank you, Peppermint. Appreciate that. Oh, Twitch came through. Fantastic. Okay, great. It didn't used to work. It's working now. Appreciate you. Appreciate you, Peppermint. Thank you. Huh. We have 3. Okay. Right. So any other things that were very particularly interesting to you before we move on to our final selection for today's book corner with the Contessa, The Poisoned Apple, compiled by, collected by Sir Thomas Malory, in the rendition of Sir Thomas Malory, I guess. Yeah, Twitch, I'm not monetized on Twitch yet, so that doesn't actually help me very much, but yeah, I'm fine watching. You can watch me wherever you want. It is fine. But it's great that I can actually finally see the live chat, because before people were leaving, same thing for Facebook. I don't know why I'm suddenly able to see Twitch and Facebook messages, but that's great. Okay. Takeda says, modernly, I like to use barkeeper's friends, and for things that are softer, silver, gilt, tin, bronze, brass, bon ami. So, okay, so everyone, we're talking about how to clean your metals. Takeda is our resident metallurgist. And Smith, at any rate, maybe he might not consider himself a metallurgist, but he understands metals. And so he likes to use barkeeper's friend, probably for steel, and then for softer metals, he recommends bon ami. Basically, they're forms of calcium carbonate, scouring powders, and soap, like a Dawn and a water combination. Okay, good recommendations. Why did people have to bring their own cutlery but not their own trenchers, napkins, etc.? That's a good question. I expect the napkins might be because it would create a more, don't know. Okay. Can everyone still hear me? For whatever reason, I just got a message that we switched cameras. So my theory on napkins is that it's to create a uniform look, right? So these are things the host would have provided, apparently. Table linens and napkins and trenchers, and those would having all of those things be uniform will create a nice uniform look to the hall. This is my impression anyway. And also, or by contrast, everyone having a different spoon, because the spoons, medieval spoons just weren't that varied. They were not. The thing that varied was like how big the dish was, but generally they're kind of all more or less the same size in any given era. And what really varies is the end treatment, the tip of the spoon, the pommel of the spoon. I don't know what to call that part of the spoon. So it wouldn't have mattered if everyone had a different spoon, whereas everyone having different kinds of napkins would probably create a less nice look. And also it could be a question of how much you can actually bring with you when you come to a feast. When you're invited to table, how much can you be reasonably expected to bring with you in this era of no cars? So that could be part of it as well. But to my mind, it may be more about the consistent look. Also, that way the host can guarantee that the napkins will start off clean. They'll all start off nice and white. They won't, you won't have like stained napkins at the start of the feast dotting the table. Those are my thoughts on why. Trenchers also, were often bread. And so that, metal trenchers or wooden trenchers, you do see them. I don't know if I've ever seen any evidence of metal trenchers being laid out en masse for, say, a wedding feast or something of that nature. I'd have to go back over the chronicles talking about, say, Margaret of York's wedding feast or Mary of Burgundy's wedding feast, and maybe Philippa of Hainaut, seeing what they talk about, what else might be brought or provided. But remember, yeah, trenchers, even in this era, were still often bread. So it just makes sense that would be provided by the host, because it's basically a food stuff. Let me see. Will you be reading from the Canterbury Tales? The wife of Bath has me rolling on the floor laughing. Eventually, we will definitely be reading a Canterbury Tale or three. I really like the one where the wife tricks the husband, convinces him that a great flood is happening, and he's hanging from in a boat that's suspended up from the crane that goes to the attic of the merchant's home. Anyway, yeah, it's really funny. Let me see. Takeda, sound stuttered for a fraction of a second. Okay, yeah, I don't know. Literally it suddenly told me connected to face forward camera. Okay, whatever. Off topic, what is your headpiece cloth, and is it one cloth? Great, Aunt Elizabeth. I actually teach workshops on how to make this. I just finished a workshop on this. It is two pieces. We're pretty certain it was called a kerchief in 15th century English, or a couvre-chef in 15th century French. But it doesn't, this specific kind with this specific shape, there's no differentiation in the language of the era. They just call all kinds of basic linen, silk head coverings that aren't structured enough to be a bonnet or a hat. They just call them a kerchief, a couvre-chef. So modernly, you might hear this called a coif. You might hear it called a winged coif, or a Flemish coif, or a French coif. All of those are modern terms. And yeah, if you want to learn how to make it, then I will be rolling out another workshop on making this, possibly at the end of August or in September. We'll be doing another workshop. I will teach you step by step how to make this. It will cover hand sewing, it will cover drafting, it will cover the history of the garment, our documentary and visual evidence for such a head covering. So if you're interested in learning to make that, keep an eye on my website, thecreativecontessa.com. Yeah, great question, great Aunt Elizabeth. Thank you for asking. So when were plates introduced? Plates that were not trenchers? I couldn't tell you when they're actually introduced, but plates, like we understand. I mean, so what's the difference between a trencher and a plate? Because there were metal trenchers and there were wooden trenchers. So I'm not certain how to answer that. It's sort of like, what's the difference between fog and mist? What's the difference between, as my Korean friends asked me yesterday, what's the difference between pastry and bread? Right? Whereas it's a spectrum, right? So it depends on what you mean by plate. When did people start eating on individual plates that were round and that were placed in front of them? I don't know. I'm going to assume that probably happened in the 17th century. It's kind of when I suspect it happened. I haven't delved quite into this level of depth in later eras to find out, but I suspect so. And it's because if you actually start looking at feast tables, at dining tables, what you'll see generally is that there's either a um, rectangular metal trencher is in front of them, and they're not big, by the way, because they're not meant to hold lots of food. So, or there's, if on the case of the poorer people, there's a round wooden trencher. Again, not very big. They're not meant to hold lots of food. You're supposed to serve as you eat. You put the food on your plate and then eat it. You're not supposed to pile, as they say, as they literally said here, not to pile lots of food onto your trencher. Right? Where was that? Um, there was literally a line here about not piling too much onto your trencher, because that's rude. God, where was that? It was somewhere around here. I just had it and then I turned the page and now it's gone. Anyway, yeah. Remember that you're not supposed to pile too much onto your trencher, and trenchers weren't actually big enough for it. Yeah, it's an interesting. Yeah, so maybe the question is, when did they stop using bread trenchers? I don't know. Maybe in the 17th century. Let's see. Trenchers. No, trenchers can also be circular. um, so it's just that the word plate is not used in the same way in medieval English, or even late early modern English, as it's used now. So yeah, they did have circular wooden trenchers, but they were still called trenchers. So yeah, that's a tricky question to answer. Okay, well, everyone, let us move on to our final reading. If there are no more questions about etiquette and the Book of Carving, um, I do plan. It is in my production plans, to do a live action reenactment of these instructions being violated in every way, shape, or form. While I do, my condottiero will be the rude, the uncouth knave, who is behaving himself at table quite illy, and I will be the narrator reading over top. So it should be quite funny. I think it will be a really funny video. That is in the plans. Yeah. Moving on then to our final reading. Oh, I also wanted to show you this. So this is my handwriting, actually. This is one of my practice pieces for 15th century calligraphy, working with quill and medieval ink from a 15th century recipe. And this is vellum. This is actually a piece of scrap vellum, right? And I get these scraps because they're super cheap. These are kind of like corners and ends and cutoffs. You can get them super cheap. You can get them by like the kilogram. And some of them are pretty nice. And then I use these if you want to practice, if you want to learn to do calligraphy and illumination on actual medieval materials, but not spend lots of money. Scraps are the way to go. And makers who sell, drum makers, drumhead makers sell these because they use vellum to make drum heads. So you can often get from drumhead makers, you can get cutoffs of real authentic, real sheepskin, real goatskin vellum. And then once I've practiced, I use them as bookmarks, because look, it's nice and big, right? And it's stiff. It's got good body to it. And see, bookmark. So if you want to get into medieval calligraphy and illumination using medieval implements, and you don't want to spend tons of money on really nice, finely finished vellum, but you still want to learn to write on vellum because it's completely different. Using real vellum is nothing, and I mean nothing like using paper, and nothing like using pergaminata. Nothing, because you have to prepare this completely different beast. So if you really want to get into it, you will need to practice, but you can use cutoffs from vellum. Drum makers will often have cutoffs in various sizes. Some of them are big enough that you can do a nice little illuminated page eventually. But yeah, and then I just keep them and use them as bookmarks. So I was thinking of actually giving some of these away, because I have a bunch of them now, giving some of these away to my patrons and channel members just as a thank you. C, G, or here's an A, here's a E, here's an F, here's a G. I realized you couldn't see. Yeah. So I just basically, when I'm practicing, I just do letter, 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 letter until the strokes get natural, and then move on. Here's a K. Playing to my strength. Right, moving on then to the final selection in today's Story time with the Contessa, Sir Thomas Malory. Sir Thomas Malory was a rogue and a knave, and possibly, well, I'm not going to say it aloud because my channel will get banned. Anyway, he was a robber baron and he spent a lot of time in jail. Despite being minor gentry, he spent a lot of time in jail. And while he was in jail, he wrote, he composed, he made good use of the time. So remember that 15th century jail is nothing like modern jail. Depending on your rank and station, you would actually possibly be kept in decent quarters. You would pay for them, not for free. You would pay for them, right? You would pay for your upkeep, you'd pay for your room and board. And Sir Thomas Malory was no exception. So while he was in jail, living, the country club, 15th century country club jail lifestyle, he composed a lot of his works. Could I make a more detailed video about writing on vellum? Lilith, I can, although I will say I'm not an expert, right? This is what I know. I have taught myself with, there's some instructional videos out there actually. Patricia Lovelace, maybe? She has actually a DVD you can buy on how to do medieval calligraphy and illumination the medieval way using medieval materials. She talks about how to prepare your vellum. Like, I've learned everything I know. I've learned from her. How to prepare your vellum, your ink, how to trim your quill, how to dip your quill into your inkwell, right? All of that stuff. And then also with working with pigments and making your own paints and how to prepare the surface for painting, how to do your drawing, how to layer it on. I think it's Patricia Lovelace. My condottiero will look it up. She's a professional English calligrapher and illuminator, and I think she might be one of the royal illuminators in England, actually. Kentwell. I have friends who go to Kentwell, or have spent summers at Kentwell Hall. Yeah, Kentwell's pretty cool. Kentwell is pretty neat indeed. That is, if unfortunately they do 16th century, and I'm not usually anyway. They do 16th century, and the 16th century to me is depressing and dark. Okay, so back to Thomas Malory. So Malory, while he was in his 15th century country club jail cell, wrote many of his Arthurian romances, his versions of these Arthurian romances. Some of them are longer and some of them are shorter. For the most part, honestly, if you like action novels, Sir Thomas Malory is your man, right? He is not into allegory or metaphor. There is none of the mysticism of the earlier authors of Arthurian romances. A Chrétien de Troyes, he is not, right? There is no mysticism of the Fisher King, no mysticism of the strange lady in the forest, right? It's lots of jousting, lots of heads being cut off and armor being stolen, and ladies in the woods, with laying in ambush, right? That's Sir Thomas Malory. So if you like a good medieval action adventure, Thomas Malory is your author of choice. If you prefer more beautiful language, more poetically phrased, with mysticism and allegory and metaphor, and things not necessarily being 100% clear, then you're going to want to look at some of the French authors, like Chrétien de Troyes is a particular favorite of mine for the French versions. And Malory's writing 300, 400 years almost after Chrétien de Troyes, right after the earliest versions of the Arthurian legend. So there's a big difference between the stories of Arthur and his knights in the 15th century and the way they're told and the things that they do in the 12th and 13th century. So yeah. Welcome, Elena. Thank you for joining us. So, the poisoned apple. So, after the quest of the Sangreal was fulfilled, and all the knights that were left on the live were come home again unto the table ronde, as the book of the Sangreal maketh mention, then was there great joy in the court, and in especial King Arthur and Queen Guinevere made great joy of the remanente that were come home. Remanente, that's such a sad way to refer to the number of people who survived the Holy Grail quest. And passing glada was the king and the queen of Sir Launcelot and of Sir Bors, for they had been passing long away in the quest of the Sangreal. Then, as the book saith, Sir Launcelot began to resort unto Queen Guinevere again, and forgetta the promise and the perfection that he made in the quest. For, as the book saith, had not Sir Launcelot been in his privy thoughts, and in his mind is so set inwardly to the queen, as he was in seeming outward to God, there had no night passed him in the quest of the Sangreal. But ever his thoughtes privily were on the queene, and so they loved together as more hotter than they had done toforehand, and had many such privy draughtes together, that many in the court spake of it, and in especial Sir Agravaine, Sir Gawaine's brother, for he was ever open-mouthed. So it befell that Sir Launcelot had many resorts of ladies and damsels, which daily resorted unto him, that besought him to be their champion. In all such matters of right, Sir Launcelot applied him daily to do for the pleasure of our Lord Jesu Christ, and ever as much as he might he withdrew him from the company of Queen Guinevere, for to eschew the sclander and noise. Wherefore the queen waxed wroth with Sir Launcelot. So on a day she called him to her chamber, and said thus: Sir Launcelot, I see and feel daily that your love beginneth to slake, for thee have no joy to be in my presence, but ever thee are out of this court, and quarrels and matters thee have nowadays for ladies, maidens, and gentlewomen, more than ever thee were wont to have beforehand. Ah, madam, said Sir Launcelot, in this thee must hold me excused for divers causes. One is, I was but late in the quest of the Sangreal, and I thank God of his great mercy, and never of my deserving, that I saw in that my quest as much as ever saw one sinful man living, and so was it told me. And if that I had not had my privy thoughtes to return to your love again, as I do, I had seen as great mysteries as ever saw my son Sir Galahad, Percival, and Sir Bors. And therefore, madam, I but late in that quest, and I wite you well, madam, it may not be yet lightly forgotten the high service in whom I doed my diligent labour. Also, madam, wite you well that there may be many men speaketh of our love in this court, and have you and me a greatly in await, as this Sir Agravaine and Sir Mordred. And madam, wite you well, I dread of them more for your sake than for only fear I have of them myself. For I may happen to escape and ride myself in great need where, madam, you must abide, all the while be said unto you. And then, if that thee fall on the distress throughout wilful folly, then is there none other helper but by me and my blood. And wite you well, madam, the boldness of you and me will bring us to shame and sclander, and that were me loath to see you dishonoured. And that is the cause I take upon me more for to do for damsels and maidens than ever I did to foreign, that men should understood my joy and my delight is my pleasure to have ado for damsels and maidens. All this while the queen stood stille, and let Sir Launcelot say what he would. And when he had all said, she brast out of weeping, and so she sobbed and wept a great while. And when she might speak, she said, Sir Launcelot, now I well understand that thou art a false, recreed knight, and a common lecherer, and lovest and holdest other ladies, and of me thou hast disdain and scorn. For wite thou well, now I understood thy falsehood, I shall never love the more, and look thou be never so hardy to come in my sight. And right here I discharge thee thy courtesy, that thou never come within it, and I forfend thee my fellowship, and upon pain of thy head, that thou see me never more. She banishes him from the court and suggests that she shall remove his head from his shoulders should he return. Right, so Sir Launcelot departed with great heaviness, that unneth he might sustain himself for great dole making. Then he called Sir Bors, Ector de Maris, and Sir Lionel, and told him how the queen had forfend him the court, and so he was in will to depart into his own country. Fair sir, said Bors de Ganis, thee shall not depart out of this Londa by mine advice, for thee must remember you what thee are, and renowned the most noblest knight of the world, and many great matters thee have in Honda. And women in their hastiness will do oftentimes that after him sore repenteth. And therefore, be mine advice, thee shall take your horse and ride to the good Hermitage here beside Windsor. That sometime was a good knight, his name is Sir Brastias, and there shall thee abide till that I send you word of better tidings. Brother, said Sir Launcelot, wit ye well I am full loath to depart out of this realm, but the queen hath defended me so highly that meseemeth she will never be my good lady as she hath been. Ah, say thee never so, said Sir Bors, for mine timeth or this she hath been wroth with you, and after that she was first that repented it. Thee say well, said Sir Launcelot, for now will I do by your counsel, and take mine horse and mine harness, and ride to the hermit Sir Brastias, and there will I repose me till I hear some manner of tidings from you. But, fair brother, in that ye can, get me the love of my lady queen, Guinevere. Sir, said Sir Bors, thee need not to meave me of such matters, for well thee wot I will do what I may to please you. And then Sir Launcelot departed suddenly, and no creature wist where he was become but Sir Bors. So when Sir Launcelot was departed, the queen outward made no manner of sorrow in showing to none of his blood, nor to none other, but wite thee well inwardly, as the book saith, she took a great thought. But she bar it out with a prouder countenance, as though she felt no thought, nother danger. So the queen let make a privy dinner in London unto the knightes of the Ronde table, and all was for to show outward that she had as great a joy in all other knightes of the Ronde table as she had in Sir Launcelot. So there was only at the dinner Sir Gawain and his brethren, that is for to say, Sir Agravain, Sir Gaheris, Sir Gareth, and Sir Mordred. And also there was Sir Bors de Ganis, Sir Blamer de Ganis, Sir Bleobrus de Gamis, Sir Galahud, Sir Eliodin, Sir Ector de Maris, Sir Lionel, Sir Palamedes, Sir Suffer, his brother, Sir Lacote Martel, terrible, oh my god, that's such a bad anglicanization of the French, Lacote Martaillet, Sir Pesant, Sir Ironside, Sir Brandolis, Sir Kay le Seneschal, Sir Mador de la Porte, Sir Patrice, a knight of Ireland, Sir Aliduc, Sir Ascamore, and Sir Pinal le Sauvage, which was a cousin to Sir Lamorak de Gallis, the good knight that Sir Gawain and his brethren slew by treason. And so these 24 knights should dine with the queen in a privy place by themselves, and there was made a great festa of all manner of dainties. But Sir Gawain had a custom that he used daily at meat and at supper, that he loved well all manner of fruit, and especial apples and pears. And therefore, whomsoever dined other fested Sir Gawain would commonly purvey for good fruit for him. And so did the queen, for to please Sir Gawain, she let to purvey for him all manner of fruit. For Sir Gawain was a passing hot knight of nature, and thus Sir Pianel hated Sir Gawain because of his kinsman Sir Lamaric's death. And therefore, for pure envy and hate, Sir Pianel and enpiansoned certain apples for to empoison Sir Gawain. So thus was well, yet unto the end of Meta, and so it befell by misfortune a good knight, Sir Patrice, which was cousin unto Sir Mador de la Porte, took an apple, for he was enchaffed with heat of wine, and it mishapped him to take a poisoned apple. And when he had eaten it, he swal sore till he brasta. And there Sir Patrice fell down suddenly dead among him. Then every knight leap from the board ashamed and arraged for wratha out of their wits, for they wist not what they say. Considering a Queen Guinevere made the feast and dinner, they all had suspicion unto her. My lady the queena, said Sir Gawaina, Madam, wite ye that this dinner was made for me and my fellows, for all focus that knoweth my condition understanda that I love well fruita. And now I see well I had ne'er be slain. Therefore, madam, I dread me lest you will be shamed. Then the queen stood still and was sore abashed, but she wist not what to say. This shall not be ended so, said Sir Mador de la Porte, for here have I lost a full noble knight of my blood, and therefore upon this shama and despite I will be revenged to the utterance. And there openly Sir Mador paled the queen of the death of his cousin Sir Patrice. Then stood they all stille, that none would speak a word against him, for they all had great suspicion unto the queen, because she let make the dinner. And the queen was so abashed that she cowed none others do but weeped so heartily that she fell on a sorrow. So with this noise and cry came to them King Arthur, and when he wist of the trouble, he was a passing heavy man. And ever Sir Mordor stood still before the king, and appealed the queen of treason. For the custom was such that at the time that all manner of shameful death was called treason. Fair lordes, said King Arthur, me repenteth of this trouble, but the case is so I may not have ado in this matter, for I must be a rightful judge. And that repenteth me that I may not do bataille for my wife, for, as I deem, this deed come never by her. And therefore I suppose she shall not be all disdained, but that some a good knight shall put his body in Juperte for my queena, rather than she should be brenta in a wrongful quarrel. And therefore, Sir Mador, be not so hasty, for perde it may happen that she not be all friendless. And therefore desire thou thy day of bataille, and she shall purvey her of some good knight that shall answer you. Other else it were to me great shame, and to all my court. So yeah, oh, the drama, right? Yeah. So here we have Guinevere accused of treason, in this case, any wrongful death, apparently, and accused of poisoning, attempting to poison Sir Gawain, no less. And so she is accused, and she stands accused. And of course, they're talking about trial by combat. And so Arthur says he cannot represent her. He cannot be her champion, literal champion upon the list of honor, for he must be the judge. And so he cautions Sir Mador perhaps to not issue this challenge and demand justice in this manner, for the queen should surely not be friendless and could surely have some great knight to stand up for her. Right. But remember, her champion is away. Is Guinevere just a bad cook? No, if we recall, the apple was intentionally poisoned, right, by Sir Pionel, who was trying to get revenge on Gawain for killing his cousin, right? So Sir Pionel is in fact the guilty party, the treasonous party. He has empoisoned the apple in the charming Franco-English of the 15th century, that he empoisoned certain apples for Gawain, but unfortunately it was not Gawain who taught it, who took it and consumed it, it was Sir Patrice. Right, so, my gracious lord, said Sir Mador, thee must hold me excused, for though thee be our kinga, in that degree thee are but a knight, as we are, and thee are sworn unto knighthood as well as we be, and therefore I beseech you that thee be not displeased, for there is none of all this 24 knights that were boughten to this dinner but all they have great suspicion unto the queen. What say the all, my lordes? Said Sir Mordor. Then they answered by and by, and said that they could not excuse the queen for why she made the dinner, and other it must come by her, other by her servants. Alas, said the queen, I made this dinner for a good entente and never for none evil. So Almighty Jesu help me in my right, as I was never purposed to do such evil deedes, and that I report me unto God. My lord the kinge, said Sir Mador, I require you, as the beth a righteous kinge, give me my day that I may have justice. Well, said the kinge, this day 15 days, look thou be ready, armed on horseback, in the meadow beside his Winchester. And if it so befall that there be only night to encounter against you, there may you do your best, and God speed the right. And if so befall that there be no knight ready at that day, then must my queen be brente, and there she shall be ready to have her judgment. Brente is burn, by the way, for those who hadn't picked up on that. I am answered, said Sir Mador, and every night, excuse me, and every night wear him like it. So when the king and the queen were together, the king asked the queen how this case befell. Then the queen said, Sir, as Jesu be my helper, she wist not how, nother in what manner. Where is Sir Launcelot? Said King Arthur. And where, and he were here, he would not grucha to do bataille for you. Sir, said the queen, I would not where he is, but his brother and his kinsman deem that he be not within this realm. That me repenteth, said King Arthur, for, and he were here, he would soon stint this strife. Well, then I will counsel you, said the king, that thee go unto Sir Bors and pray him for to do bataille for you, for Sir Launcelot's sake, and upon my life he will not refuse you. For will I see, said the king, that none of the 24 knights that were at your dinner where Sir Patrice was slain would will do bataille for you. None of them will say well of you, and that shall be a great squander to you in this quarter. Alas, said the queen, and may I not do withal, but now I misses Sir Launcelot, and for and he were here, he would soon put me in my heart's ease. Heart's ease, for those of you who are familiar with a song and a dance, this might be the earliest mention I've seen of that term. My heart's ease. What aileth you, said the king, that thee cannot keep Sir Launcelot upon your side? For wite ye well, said the king, who that hath Sir Launcelot upon his party hath the most man of worship in this world upon his side. Now go your way, said the king unto the queen, and require Sir Bors to do bataille for you, and for Sir Launcelot's sake. So the queen departed from the king, and sent her for Sir Bors into the chamber. And when he came, she besought him of succour. Madam, said he, what would thee that I did? For I may not with my worship have ado in this manner, because I was at the same dinner, for dread of only of those knights would have you in suspicion. Also, madam, said Sir Bors, now miss thee Sir Launcelot, for he would not have failed you in your right, nother in your wrong. For when he have been in right great dangers, he has succoured you. And now thee have driven him out of this country, by whom thee and all were daily worshipped by. Therefore, madam, I merveil how thee dare for shame to require me to do one thing for you, insomuch thee have enchanced out of your court, by whom we were upborn and honoured. Alas, fair knight, said the queen, I put me whole in your grace, and all that is amiss I will amend as thee will counsel me. And therewith she kneeled down upon both her knees, and besought Sir Bors to have mercy upon her. Other else I shall have a shameful death, and thereto I never offended. Yes, exactly, Elena. Heartsease is also of Pansy. Right, so came King Arthur and found the queen kneeling. And then Sir Bors took her up and said, Madam, you do me great dishonour. Ah, gentle knight, said the king, have mercy upon my queen, courtesy knight, for I am now in certain she is untruly defamed, and therefore courtesy knight. The king said, promise it her to do bataille for her, I require you, for the love thee owe unto Sir Launcelot. My lord, said Sir Bors, thee require me the greatest thing that any man can require of me. And wite ye well, if I granta to do bataille for the queen, I shall reth many of my fellowship of the table ronde. But as for that, said Sir Bors, I will granta for my lord Sir Launcelot's sake, and for your sake. I will at that day be the queen's champion, only that there come by adventures a knight better than I am to do bataille for her. Will thee promise me this, said the king, by your faith? Yea, sir, said Sir Bors, of that I shall not fail you, nother her, but if there come a better knight than I, then shall he have the bataille. Then was the king and the queen passing glada, and so departed, and thanked him heartily. Then Sir Bors departed secretly upon a day, and rode unto Sir Launcelot, thereas he was with Sir Brastias, and told him of all this adventure. Ah, Jesu, Sir Launcelot said, this is come happily as I would have it. And therefore I pray ye make ready to do bataille. But look that ye tarry till thee see me come as long as thee may. For I am sir, Mador is a hot knight when he is enchafed. For the more thee suffer him, the hastier will he be to do bataille. Aha, a stratagem. To enrage Sir Mador and make him unbalanced in his temper, most choleric. Sir, said Sir Bors, let me deal with him. Doubta thee not, thee shall have all your will. So departed Sir Bors from him, and came to the court again. That was it noised in all the court that Sir Bors should do bataille with the queen. Wherefore many knights were displeased with him that he would take upon him to do bataille in the queen's quarrel. For there were but few knights in all the court, but they deemed the queen was in the wrong, and that she had done that treason. So Sir Bors answered thus to his fellows of the table ronde. Weet thee well, my fair lordess, it were shame to us all, and we suffered, to see the most noble queen of the world to be shamed openly, considering her lord and our lord is the man of most worship christened, and he hath ever worshipped us all in all places. Many answered him again, as for our most noble King Arthur, we love him and honor him as well as thee do, but as for Queen Guinevere, we love her not, because she is a destroyer of good knights. Fair lordess, said Sir Bors, meseemeth thee say not as thee should say, for never yet in my days knew heard say that ever she was a destroyer of good knights. But at all times, as far as ever I could know, she was a maintainer of good knights, and ever she hath been large and free of her goodness to all knights. Oh, maybe too free. And the most bounteous lady of her giftes and her good grace that ever I saw other heart speak of. And therefore it were shame to us all, and to our most noble king's wife, whom we serve, and we suffered her to be shamefully slain. And weet ye well, said Sir Bors, I will not suffer it, for I dare say so much, for the queen is not guilty of Sir Patricy's death, for she ought him never none evil will, nother none of the 24 knights that were at that dinner. For I dare say, for good love, she bade us to dine her, and not for no male angina. Excuse me, for no mala angina. Mala is evil, right? And that I doubt not shall be preved hereafter, for howsomever the game goeth, there was treason among us. Then some said to Sir Bors, we may well believe your wordis. And so some were well pleased, and some were not. So the day come on fasta until the even that the bataille should be. Then the queen sent for Sir Bors, and asked him how he was disposed. Truly, madam, said he, I am disposed in likewise as I promised you. That is to say, I shall not fail ye onless there by adventure come a better knight than I am to do bataille for you. Then, madam, I am of you discharged of my promise. Well, said the queen, that I tell my lord the king thus. Doth as it pleaseth you, madam. Then the queen yoda unto the king, and told her the answer of Sir Bors. Well, have thee no doubt, said the king of Sir Bors, for I call him now that is living one of the noblest knights of the world, and most perfectest man. Perfectest, the perfectest man. And thus it paced on till the morn, and so the king and the queen and all manner of knights that were there at the time drew them unto the meadow beside us Winchester, where the bataille should be. And so, when the king was come with the queen and many knights of the table ronde, so the queen was then put in the constables warda, and a great fire made about an iron stake, that and Sir Mordor de la Porte had the better. She should there be brenta, for such custom was used in those days. For favor, love, another affinity, there should be none other, but righteous judgment, as well upon a king as upon a knight, as well upon a queen as upon another poor lady. So thus, meanwhile, came in Sir Mador de la Porte, and took his other before the king, how that the queen did this treason until his cousin Patriza. And, he said, unto mine other I will prove it with my body, Honda for Honda, who that will say the contrary. Right. So came in Sir Bors de Ganis, and said that as for Queen Guinevere, she is in the right, and that will I make good, that she is not culpable of this treason that is put upon her. Then make the ready, said Sir Mador, and we shall prove whether thou be in the right or I. Sir Mador, said Sir Bors, wit you well, I know you for a good knight. Not for then, I shall not fear you so greatly, but I trust to God I shall be able to withstand your malice. But thus much have I promised my lord Arthur and my lady the queen, that I shall do bataille for her in this cause to the utterest, unless that there come a better knight than I, and discharge me. Is that all? Said Sir Mador. Other come thou off and do bataille with me, other else say nay. Take your horse, said Sir Bors, and, as I suppose, I shall not tarry long, but thee shall be answered. Then either departed to their tentis, and made him ready to horseback, as they thought best. And anon Sir Mador came into the field, with his shield on his shoulder, and his spear in his honda, and so rode about the place, crying unto King Arthur, Bide your champion come forth, and he dare. Then was Sir Bors ashamed, and he took his horse and came to the listis ende. And then was he where came from a wood there fast by a knight, all armed upon a white horse, with a strong shield of strong armes, and he came driving all that his horse might renne. And so he came to Sir Bors and said thus, Fair knight, I pray you be not displeased, for here must a better knight than thee are have this bataille. Therefore, I pray you withdraw thee, for wite thee well, I have had this day a right great journey, and this bataille ought to be mine. And so I promised you when I spake with you last, and with all my heart I thank you of your good will. And then Sir Bors rode unto King Arthur, and told him how there was a knight come that would have the bataille to fight for the queen. What knight is he? Said the king. I wot not, said Sir Bors, but such a covenant he made with me to be here this day. Now, my lord, said Sir Bors, here I am discharged. Then the king called to that knight, and asked him if he would a fight for the queen. Then he answered and said, Sir, therefore come I hither, and therefore, Sir Kinga, tarry me nae longer, for anon as I have finished this bataille, I must depart hence, for I have to do many batailles elsewhere. For wite thee well, said that knight, this is dishonour to you and to all knights of the Ronde Table, to see and know so noble a lady and so courtesy as Queen Guinevere is, thus to be rebuked and shamed amongst you. Then they all merveiled what knight that might be that so took the bataille upon him, for there was not one that knew him, but if it were Sir Bors. Then said Sir Mardor de la Porte unto the king, Now let me wit with whom I shall have ado. And then they rode to the listis enda, and there they couched their spears, and ran to get her with all their mightis. And anon Sir Mador's spear brake all to pieces, but the other spear hilde, and bare Sir Mador's horse, and all backward to the earth a great falle. But mightily and deliverally he avoided his horse from him, and put his shield before him, and drew his sword, and bade the other knight alight, and do bataille with him on foot. Oh, the excitement. Lancelot's, the secret knight, his lance holds, he unhorses his opponent, but his opponent retains his weapons and his shield, pulls his sword, and demands battle on foot. Aha. Then that knight descended down from his horse, and put his shield before him, and drew his sword. And so they came eagerly unto bataille, and either gave other many sad strokes, tracing and traversing, and foining together with their swordes, as it were wild boars, thus frightening nigh on other. For this Sir Mador was a strong knight, and mightily craved in many strange batailles. But at the last, this knight smote Sir Mordor groveling upon the earth, and the knight stepped near him to have pulled Sir Mordor flatling upon the ground. And therewith Sir Mordor arose, and in his rising he smote that knight through the thick of the thighs, that the blood brast out fiercely. And when he felt himself so wounded, and saw his blood, he let him arise upon his feet, and then he gaf him such a buffet upon the helm that he fell to the earth flatling. And therewith he strode to him to have pulled of his helma of his head. And so Sir Mador prayed that knight to save his life. And so he yielded him as overcome, and relaced the queen of his quarrel. I will not grant thee thy life, said the knight, only that the fraile realis the queen forever, and that no mention be made upon Sir Patris's tomb that ever Queen Guinevere consented to that treason. All this shall be done, said Sir Mador. I clearly discharge my quarrel forever. Then the knightes parters of the lista took up Sir Mardor, and led him till his tente. And the other knight went straight to the stray foot where sat King Arthur. And by that time was the queen come to the king, and either kissed other heartily. And when the king saw that the knight he stopped down to him, and thanked him, and in likewise did the queen. And the king prayed him to put off his helmet, and to repose him, and to take a sop of wine. And that he put off his helm to drink, and then every knight knew him, that it was Sir Launcelot. And anon as the king wist that, he took the queen in his handa, and yode unto Sir Launcelot, and said, Sir, grant a mercy of your great travail that thee have had this day for me and for my queen. My lord, said Sir Launcelot, wit thee well, it ought of right ever to be in your quarrel and in my lady's the queen's quarrel to do battaille, for thee are the man that gave me the high order of knighthood. And that day my lady your queene did me worship. And else had I been ashamed, for that same day thee made me knight. Thorough my hastiness, I lost my sworde, and my lady your queene found it, and lappet it in her traine, and gave me my sworde when I had needed thereto. And else had I been shamed among all knights, and therefore, my lord Arthur, I promised her at that day ever to be her knight, in right other in wronge. Grant a mercy, said the king. Grant a mercy is the original version of gramercy, right? This is the 15th century full spelling. Grant a mercy, grant mercy. Grant a mercy, said the king, for this journey. And wait thee well, said the king. I shall acquit your goodness. And evermore the queen beheld Sir Launcelot, and wept so tenderly that she sank almost to the ground for sorrow, that he had done her so great a kindness, where she showed him great unkindness. Then the knightes of his blood drew unto him, and there either of them made great joy of other. And so came all the knightes of the table ronde that were there at the time and welcomed him. And then Sir Mordor had to Lechecroft, and so Sir Launcelot was held of his play. And so there was made great joy, and many mirthras there was made in that court. And so it befell that the damsel of the lake that hight Nineveh, which wedded the good knight Sir Pelleas, and so she came to the court, for ever she did great goodness unto King Arthur, to all his knightes through her sorcery and enchantmentes. And so when she heard how the queen was grieved for the death of Sir Patras, then she told it openly that she was never guilty, and there she disclosed by whom it was done, and named him Sir Pianell, and for what cause he did it. There it was openly known and disclosed, and so the queen was excused. And this night, Sir Pianell fled unto his country, and was openly known that he empoisoned the Apollos at the festa, to that entente to have destroyed Sir Gawain, because Sir Gawain and his brethren destroyed Sir Lamorak de Gallis, which Sir Pianell was cousin unto. Then was Sir Patris buried in the church of Westminster in a tomb, and thereupon was written, Here lieth Sir Patris of Ireland, slain by Sir Pianell le Sauvage, that empoisoned an Apollos to have slain Sir Gawain, and by misfortune Sir Patris ate one of the Apollos, and then suddenly he brast. Wow, that's quite an epitaph. Also, there was written upon the tomb that Queen Guinevere was upheld of the treason of the death of Sir Patris by Sir Mordor de la Porte, and there was made mention of how Sir Launcelot fought with him for Queen Guinevere and overcome him in plain battaille. All this was written upon the tomb of Sir Patris, an excusing of the queen. And then Sir Mordor sued daily and long to have the queen's good grace, and so by the meanness of Sir Launcelot he caused him to stand in the queen's good grace, and all was forgotten. The end of the empoisoned Apollo. Exciting adventure, eh? Yeah, granted merci. Yeah. Oh, I thought grand merci was for grand merci, but it's referred to grand merci. I mean, mercy and mercy. Yeah. And so I'm pretty certain that grand merci and grand merci. I've never seen the word grand merci used in 15th century French. But yeah, grand merci. I mean, it could also be the Anglicization of grand merci, right? It could be both, or one or the other. It could go either way in the etymology, right? Well, did I miss any questions along the way? Hold on a minute. King Arthur and his noble knights. Yes. Yes. Okay. Well, that has been your book corner. Were there any questions about anything we have read today? Next time, I plan to read some salacious court gossip from the Duchy of Burgundy, including, and you'll be surprised to hear this, a case of poisoning. And perhaps we shall read a tale of a wedding feast, the one of the greatest wedding feasts ever in the original source, so you can hear how feasts are described in 15th century language and what they were like. And of course, I think we will continue with more salacious tales from some of the great storytellers of the era, more Boccaccio, perhaps more Mallory, or I might choose maybe a translation of one of the French Arthurian legends. If you have any requests for medieval story time with the Contessa, don't put them in this live chat. Post them in the comments under the video in the various platforms. Doesn't matter which platform, because it's really hard for me to go back and look at the live chat. I can't just scroll through it so easily. So if you have any requests for story time with the Contessa, pop them into the comments under the video itself, the recorded video, not in the live chat, please, because then I can actually go and take your requests into consideration. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of convo is on the live tube. Yeah, that's true. And I think I'm pretty certain I'm going to do it later next time. I don't know what I was thinking. For many of you, for those of you in Europe, this is the middle of the night, so maybe that's appropriate. But for those of you in the Americas, it's maybe it's not quite story time yet. So I think I'll probably put it at a slightly later time slot. Um, yeah, let me know if this works for you all. Otherwise, I really appreciate you all. I appreciate my patrons and my Patreon patrons and my channel members who are willing to support me. I appreciate Armor and Castings, one of my official channel sponsors. I appreciate all of you who find other ways to support me that are not monetary. You leave emojis under the videos, you leave comments and questions. You're here in the live chat participating and supporting. I do appreciate all the forms of support, everyone. Thank you all so much. I am now going to film what I hope is the final version of the script for my medieval rings video. So that will be coming out very soon. That should come out probably, hopefully before June 30th. Otherwise, I have coming up this weekend 2 fun live episodes planned. Friday night in the Americas, or Friday evening in the Americas, middle of the night Europe, Saturday morning in Asia and Australia. I'll be doing medieval myth busting with Philip from Irish Medieval History. We're going to be talking about kilts and underpants and the horrible misconceptions that people have about those in the Middle Ages. And then on Sunday morning Asia time, Saturday evening Americas, middle of the night, Saturday to Sunday Europe, will be my usual medieval sewing party. I will be sewing something and talking about what I'm sewing. And I think I'm going to be talking about medieval and Renaissance dance, and trying to give you guys a better picture of that while we sew. But of course, all the other things I've learned and any other thoughts that come randomly in my head about medieval material culture. And of course, as always, in my medieval sewing party, if you have questions about anything about medieval material culture, whether it's Korea or Europe, just pop it in the live chat and I will endeavor to answer it. So I hope to see you all. If you haven't, please subscribe and hit that thumbs up. Otherwise, I hope to see you all this weekend for all of the fun live adventures we have planned for the community. I appreciate you all. Have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. Until next time, guys, may your adventures be creative. Bye, everyone.